we've had the Super Bowl party at different houses and stuff, and typically the halftime show isn't all that edifying. So uh, usually have somebody give their testimony, and so I thought that I would go ahead and share some of my journey about how I came to Jesus, but also you might find it interesting, kind of my pursuit of professional baseball career and how that played out. And it's an interesting story, and I haven't told the story for a long time. So it's good to kind of recall it. It's good to kind of reminisce. It's good to think and feel again about how it was that the Lord kind of revealed Himself to me, and in the pursuit. Jesus told a couple of parables. There are only three verses, but He said the kingdom of heaven is like a man who was plowing in the field, and he came upon a treasure. And when he found the treasure, he sold everything he had, and he bought the field so he could possess the treasure. And then he said it's also like a merchant of fine pearls who was looking for fine pearls, and when he found the pearl of great price, again he did the same thing. He sold everything he had and he bought that pearl. Basically, Jesus is saying two things. Number one, that when you discover the worth and value of the kingdom, it's worth everything that you have. You'd be wise to go ahead and I mean, you can't buy the kingdom, obviously, but you wouldn't want to. But it's worth everything that you have. The second thing about those two parables is, in one case, the man wasn't looking for the treasure, but he stumbled across it and he found it. The other case, the fellow was looking. He was on search, and I think that's the case with some of us. Some of us went on an intentional search to try to find God, and God revealed Himself, because the Bible says that you'll seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart. So He honors that. You draw near to God, He draws near to you. But there are some people, other people, who they just kind of there's a Bible verse in Isaiah that says, "I was found by people who didn't seek me." So God chose to reveal Himself to people who weren't even looking. But when they saw God, they're like, "Yes, this is what I need," right? So I think for me, I went on an intentional search for God. Like I had come to the point in my life, because I grew up in church, and I was a good kid. Like I was kind of like my mom's favorite. I had older brother, who was like the black sheep, right? She worried about him so much. She never worried about me. But later she found out she should have worried about me, because I got into some stuff that was not good. But that kind of came to my senses, and I'm like, this life of partying, this life of going to bars, this life, it's not fulfilling, right? But my biggest question at that time was, am I right with God? And yeah, I partied and I did, but I kind of saw myself as still a good guy. I believed in God. I even prayed at night. So, am I right with God? I think I must be, because I believe in God. But I found out that there's a way that seems right to a man, but in the end, it leads to death. So, so when I was a kid growing up, good in school, but especially good in athletics, and I was always the first guy chosen in baseball. In Chicago, in our neighborhood where I grew up, it was a really, really organized baseball system. They had tryouts, they had drafting. You could draft players. We had a complex. We would have hundreds and hundreds of fans come out to watch our games when we were 12 years old. So it was the fields were beautiful, and so we were kind of seen. We get a lot of attention, as athletes. So I was the number one draft in the Little League. I was the number one draft in the next league up. And our high school baseball team was superb, superb. In my 4 years of high school, our cumulative record was 72 wins and 6 losses in 4 years. We were a really, really, really good team. In my senior year of high school, as a pitcher, I threw 2 no-hitters. I don't know if you know what a no-hitter is, but in baseball, if the pitcher pitches the whole game, the other team doesn't even get 1 hit. That's a no-hitter. I had 2 no-hitters, right? So I went off to play baseball at Illinois State University. Don't know why I went there particularly, but I don't know. I think it was the Lord. So, but when I was there, my second year, I quit the team because I wasn't getting enough playing time, I thought. But my roommate, he hated the coach. He had been on the team. He quit the team, and he wanted me to quit the team too. So we were drinking one night, and he said to me, "Yeah, why don't you quit the team?" And I made a rash vow. And the Bible says, "Don't make a rash vow." Remember Jephthah? He made a vow that next thing that comes out the door, I'm going to sacrifice to the Lord. Happened to be his daughter, because Jesus said that your yes be yes and your no no. So, and Herod made a vow too. Remember? When Salome danced, and I'll give you up to half my kingdom, whatever you want. And then she said, "Well, I want the head of John the Baptist." And Herod's like, "Oh man, I made a vow. I made a terrible vow," and so he couldn't go back on the vow. So I said to my roommate, my friend, I said, "If the coach doesn't take me on the spring trip, I'm quitting the team." And lo and behold, the list came out for the spring trip, and I wasn't on the list. So I went and I turned my uniform in. I quit the team. And I remember, I don't want to do this. I don't want to quit, but it's like, well, I have to save face. I said I would do it, which was kind of stupid because I just cried and cried and cried when I quit the team. I was like, this is really bad, right? So the next 2 years, I just finished my degree at university, but it was during that time when I was asking the question, am I right with God? And so my senior year of my university, me and my 2 friends went down to Florida for spring break, and we went down there to party. We were going to party, and I never like a lot of friends, for spring break. A lot of students went down to Florida for spring break, and they come back and tell all these stories about how great it was down there. And I never had the money to go, but this year I got an income tax check back, and me and my friends, we just loaded up the car with everything that the party, right? So got down there, and we partied hard. And the second to last night that we were there, I'll never forget it. It was at a hotel party. It was all you can drink. It was outside by the pool, and the beach was right there, the ocean right there. And I left the party. I went for a walk on the beach, and something was really, really troubling me. It was like, here I am. I'm supposed to be having a good time. And sure, maybe I'm having fun, but I'm thinking, I'm having fun, but I'm not happy. Like, I'm not happy. So I'm trying to deal with this. And my 2 friends, they were good friends. They came out and they said, "Adams, what's wrong, man?" And so I just started crying. I said, "I don't know. I just know." And I said, I'm having fun, but I'm not happy, right? So we were driving back. Actually, what happened was the next night was the only night that we didn't party because we were out. We were out of everything. We drank everything. We smoked everything. And so we were out, and it was a beautiful night, and we were camping out. And my roommate's, or my friend's brother, who played baseball for the Minnesota Twins, because we were in Florida, we were in the same town where he was spring training, and he came out to our campground. And it was a beautiful night, and we blew off some fireworks. And we're sitting around a campfire, and his name is John Castino. He actually got Rookie of the Year in the American League. You can look him up. He asked us if we believed in God. And I said, the stars, like the moon, the stars, the whole thing. I'm like, really? Of course I believe in God, right? But his brother said, I don't have any proof, so I don't believe in God anyway. But then John, he told us he had a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. And we had the Jesus freaks at school. You know, they'd come around to your dorm room and they'd want to talk to you about, we call them the Jesus freaks. And they'd come and we'd mock them out and we wouldn't open the door. Like, the Jesus freaks are here, the Jesus freaks are here, right? But there was this one guy who was part of the Christian group there at the school, and he lived in my same dorm. And I remember playing intramural basketball against him. And I really respected the way he played. He played hard, he played clean, and he was really hard to defend. He played defense on me, like, he shut me down, right? I just got impressed with him, and I thought, this guy has, you know, he has some grit, you know, he's not mandy-pandy, you know, Jesus boy, you know. He's like, I really respected him, right? So when John told us he had a personal relationship with Jesus, I thought, I better get a hold of my Bible. So I went home. I'd gone home. I had a Bible, you know. I started to read the Bible. And so here I am, finishing up my degree. I'm living in a party house with 7 other guys, and I'm reading the Bible incognito. I'm reading it on the fly. And if someone would come up, I'd be like stashing the Bible, you know. I didn't want to see I was reading the Bible. But for some reason, I really like to read the book of Proverbs. I thought, man, these make a lot of sense. These make a lot of sense for my life, you know. So I was reading the book of Proverbs, and I came across a proverb that says, "There's a way that seems right to a man, in the end it leads to death." See, for me, I was justified. I was thinking, I'm right with God. I must be right with God because I believe in God. But when I read that, there's a way that seems right, but leads to death. I'm like, I think I'm in trouble. I think this is me. So it scared me a little bit, and I thought, you know what? I just can't assume that I'm right with God. I don't think I am. So I'm thinking, so what does it mean to be right with God? It's got to be more than just believing in God, because like the demons believe in God too. So it's got to be more than that. But I didn't know. Because when he said a personal relationship with Jesus Christ, that's the first time I ever heard that. I wasn't raised in the church that talked about that. They never talked about the Holy Spirit or a personal relationship with Jesus. And so that kind of intrigued me, and I thought, well, how do you get a personal relationship with Jesus? So graduated from university, went back home for the summer, and my sister came for a visit from California, and she had found the Lord while she was in California. And when she came back, she brought 2 books with her. She brought the Living Bible, which was a paraphrase of the Bible, and she brought another book, was a testimony book. And I started reading the Living Bible, and I couldn't put it down. I was reading the Gospels. I just wanted to read about Jesus. So if I'm going to have a personal relationship with Jesus, well, I'm going to read about Jesus. So, and I loved reading about Jesus. Like, wow, you know, his power, his love, his compassion, you know, everything that he was. And I knew the stories, right? I heard the stories before. I went to Sunday school. These stories came alive, and I think I read the Gospels over, I don't know, 6 or 7 times while she was there. And then her other book, it was a testimony book, and in that book, it says, if you want a personal relationship with Jesus Christ, pray this prayer. You know, Jesus, I confess that I've sinned. I believe that you're the Son of God. I believe that God rose you from the dead, and I put my trust in you and faith in you alone for salvation. Come into my heart, forgive me of my sin, and fill me with your Spirit, right? So I read this prayer, and I'm thinking, that's it right there. That right there is what it means to have a personal relationship with Jesus. So I remember I'm sitting in my dad's lazy boy. Nobody was home, and I was home. It was summer afternoon, so I think, okay, I need to pray this prayer. And then I said to myself, I'm not praying it. I'm not praying it. Because I said, if I pray this prayer, then that means I no longer call the shots on my life. If I pray this prayer and I'm serious, then that means Jesus, he gets to call the shots. I have to give up control of my life to Jesus. And I thought, I'm not giving up control of my life to, it's really stupid, right? To anybody. Um, and I'm like, yeah, so if we would have thought about it logically, he loved you enough to die for you. He cares about you. He knows everything. So you'd be stupid not to, right? But you know how it is, how we are, So that was in the summertime. And then I got a job. I had a business degree, and I got a job. I started working, but it was September, and it was Eddie's birthday, and it was a big party down at school, and I got invited to go to the party, so I drove down for this party. But by that time, I wasn't drinking anymore. I wasn't doing anything. I wasn't getting high. Then I started to go back to church. I started to go back to church. So I was still like searching for God, still hungry for God, but wasn't quite ready to make that jump, that final jump. And so I went down to school for this party, and so it was for the whole weekend. Like I got there Friday night, and Saturday night was this huge party, and I didn't drink at all, and I was sober the whole night, and it shocked me. It shocked me, because while I was staying sober, all my friends were getting drunk, and they changed before my eyes. I'm like, these people are getting mean, and they're getting nasty, and they're getting vulgar. It's because they're getting drunk. And I thought, this was me. This was me. This is me, right? This is what I did, So the next night, Sunday night, I'll never forget it, because I was driving home, and I pulled off onto the interstate to go back home to Chicago, and I looked over to my right, and I saw the lights of the school, and I had all these feelings of regret and remorse. It's like, man, I just kind of got on the wrong path, and I don't like what my life became while I was attending that school. And then I heard these words come out of my mouth, and I said, okay, Jesus, I'm all yours. I'm all yours. And I can't describe for you what happened at that moment. The Bible calls it joy unspeakable and full of glory. It was laughing, crying, rejoicing, freedom, filled with the Spirit. That 2-hour drive back to Chicago was like phenomenal. It was so amazing how the Lord met me in my car. I don't know where you guys got saved. I got saved in my car. So I get home late, and the next morning I come down for breakfast, and I'm really close with my mom, right? And I come down for breakfast, and my mom takes one look at me, and she said to me, "What happened to you?" And I said, "Really? Yeah. What happened to you?" I said, "Mom, I gave my life to Jesus last night." And that was good with her, because she was a church-going woman, and she prayed for all of us. And so now I'm like, wow, okay, so I'm going to take this new life, and I'm going to go with it. I'm going to go for it. But something happened to me after I became a Christian, because I still thought about baseball. I still thought about, I met a lot of guys who, they thought they were good enough. They thought they were good enough, and I never thought they were good enough. I knew they weren't good enough. Maybe I was like them, but I thought I was good enough. Like, I think I'm good enough, to go pro. I think I'm good enough to make it to the bigs. And so, now that I was a Christian, I'm like, okay, I'm trying to evaluate my motives here. Now I have the motivation to kind of go for it in life, right? I'm going to go for it in life. Jesus has given me new life, but I thought, well, why do I want to do this? Because as a kid, a lot of kids, well, they want to be, a professional athlete, right? So, what's my motivation? It's like, so I just put it before the Lord. I said, Lord, I think I want to pursue this. I think I want to do this, but not my will, but but yours be done, right? I just want to know what you want me to do. But I thought, and I had a friend tell me, she was a good friend, and I was talking to her about it, and she said, well, listen, if you don't go for it, you might have regrets for the rest of your life, at least if you don't try. So she said, give it your best shot. I'm like, okay, I'm going to give it my best shot. So I went to my boss. I've been only working in that place for 4 or 5 months. And I go in, I was head of the production control, well, I was like the only one in the production control department in this oil seal manufacturing company. And I go in to give my notice, and before I can go in, the boss calls me into his office and says, we want to promote you. Here's a good job, we're going to promote you to this job. And I had gone in to quit, and now he's telling, before I could tell him I'm quitting, now they're giving me a promotion. I'm thinking, oh, wow. Well, that would be good. My mom would be really happy if I took this job, because she wanted me to be like a junior executive guy, and she was the person most responsible for putting me through college, right? And she was a little disappointed that I was going to quit and go for the baseball thing. So I thought, okay, I'll give it a day and pray about it, and so the next day I came back and I said, yeah, I got to pursue my dream. So that was like, what time of year was that? Yeah, it was in the winter time, I think. Anyway, so I decided I'm going to quit my job. I'm going to go into training, and I'm going to go down to Florida for spring break. Well, not for spring break. I'm going to go down for spring training. Spring training. Baseball teams are in spring training that time of year. So I got about 6 weeks to kind of get in shape, get my arm in shape, get down there and see if I can get signed, right? See if I can get noticed. So my brother came with me, but like a week before I was to leave for Florida, I was downtown. My dad worked downtown. I was downtown going to see my dad. And I was in a bookstore, and I ran into Bill Veeck. He's the owner of the Chicago White Sox baseball team. He's the owner. And there he is in Crocs and Piano's bookstore. Mr. Bill Veeck. I know him anywhere. So I'm like, wow, here's my chance. So I approached him politely, and I said, Mr. Veeck, introduced myself. I said, I'm planning to go to Florida next week to try to get a tryout. He said, I said, can you give me a tryout? He said, absolutely, I can get you a tryout. He wrote down a phone number, and he gave me and he said, this is Dave Dombrowski. He's a very famous general manager in the major leagues now, but he was just an associate guy at the White Sox. Here's Dave Dombrowski. Here's his number. Give him a call. He will give you a tryout. And he did. Gave me a tryout. But I guess it wasn't a good enough tryout. So there was other guys at the tryout too, right? And so I went from that tryout, and I went over to the Pittsburgh Pirates training camp. And I just went in there, and I was just standing around, and a guy in uniform came up to me and he said, you look like you should be on the field instead of over here. And I said, well, yes, sir, that's why I'm here. I'd like to get a tryout. The guy who approached me, his name was Branch Rickey Jr. I don't know if you know the name Branch Rickey, but he's a very famous general manager for Brooklyn Dodgers. He was the one who broke the color line. Branch Rickey Sr. was the one who gave Jackie Robinson his contract. And if you watch the movie 42, it shows all that, Branch. So this is Branch Rickey Jr. And Branch Rickey Sr. was a hero to me. I'm like, wow, Branch Rickey Jr. Wow, this is great. And so, anyway, I don't want to belabor this part of it, but they had me go out to the mound. I didn't want to be a pitcher because I knew I didn't have a major league fastball. I had a major league curveball, but I knew I didn't have a major league fastball. I knew that. So I wanted to be an outfielder or shortstop or catcher, right? Anyway, but they needed pitchers. So they put me out on the mound. There was another guy there for a tryout, and so he was first to go. And he threw about 10 pitches, and they said, okay, that's good, thanks. And they just talked to him, and he left. I got on the mound, and I threw 10 pitches. I threw 20 pitches. And they got 3 guys watching me. I threw another 10 pitches, and I must have thrown 40 pitches. They said, okay, that's good, Mark. And all three guys left and went into the clubhouse, and they were in there for like 10 minutes. They said, wait here, we'll be back. So I guess they went in to talk about whether or not they were going to sign me. And so Mr. Ricky came out and he said, you know, I was pushing for signing you. These two guys are our scouts. They said, you know, you're older than some of our prospects, and you're as good as them, but why would we sign you when we've already invested in them? So he said to me, please don't quit, keep trying, keep doing it, right? So I left Florida without success in getting signed. And so I played baseball that summer for a semi-pro team in Chicago. I had a fantastic year. I don't know if you can think about baseball, but this is really good league, good pitching, and I batted 500, which was unheard of. So I was really playing well. And so I decided that there's a magazine, a newspaper called the Sporting News, baseball, different kinds of sports. And I was reading the Sporting News, in the back, in the classifieds, was an ad for a baseball camp you can go to, instructional camp, that you have to pay to go to. But it was run by Wally Moon. You wouldn't know that name, but he was a star baseball player for the St. Louis Cardinals and Los Angeles Dodgers. And he owned a couple of minor league teams. Wally Moon owned a couple of minor league teams. And he's looking for players for his teams, right? I didn't know that from the ad, but I just thought, I'm going to go to this instructional camp, and I'm going to see if I can get signed. And cool story. Yeah, I'll tell the story. So I go to the camp, and it's a 5-day camp. And so in the morning, you go through drills and batting practice. And first day of the camp, hitting and batting practice, and we're at the San Francisco Giant training facility in Casa Grande, Arizona. And I don't know if you know anything about how deep ballparks are in in the major leagues. Usually about 330 feet down the line, 400 feet in center, another 330 down the other line. But in these practice fields, they were 400 down the line, 450 in center, and 400 down the other line. And I hit 2 home runs in batting practice. Nobody hits home runs in those parks, right? I hit 2 home runs in batting practice. I got noticed. Some kid just knocked out 2 homers on the practice field. What? Yeah. So right away, it got their attention. So we'd have drills and stuff in the morning, but we have inter-squad games in the afternoon. So I put down, they asked your position, so I put shortstop number 1 because that was my number 1 position. And I think I put catcher or outfielder number 2, and I put pitcher number 3 because I pitched in college. And so our team in the inter-squad game, we ran out of pitchers, and then someone said, oh yeah, well, you put down pitcher, you can pitch? So yeah, I can pitch. So I go out there and pitch in the inter-squad game. It must have been adrenaline, right? I'm just so pumped. And boom, 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 I just mowed everybody down. So that night, Coach Moon calls me into his office after supper. He was from Mississippi, right? He just got the thickest drawl you ever heard. I'll never forget it, because it was the night that actually something happened in the world. Anyway, I sit down and he says, Mark, we're going to want to sign you to a professional contract. I'm like, wow. Thank you, Jesus, right? But he didn't know if it was going to be either as a pitcher or a shortstop. And he said that they were going to keep me on for another week. But this camp was right before Christmas, and the second week was after Christmas. So he said, you could go home and come back, or you could just stay here for over Christmas. I'm like, well, I can't go home and come back. I can't afford a plane ticket. So I stayed there over Christmas. And the second week he determined, yeah, we're going to sign you as a shortstop. And I'm like, yes, I don't want to be a pitcher. I don't have a major league fastball, so I'm going to be signed as a shortstop. So So the team he signed me to was the Salem Senators. Roman looked that up the other day. The Salem Senators, but their season didn't start till June. So I was playing spring ball in Chicago, and I got hit by a pitch, and I chipped a bone in my wrist in spring ball. And so the doctor said it would take about 6 weeks to heal. So I called up Coach Moon. I said, Coach, I just have to tell you, I chipped a bone in my right wrist, my throwing wrist. But the doctor said it should be healed by the time I get to camp. He said, all right. Then he says, we're going to want you to do a little pitching. I thought, that's fine. I don't mind pitching, you know. What I didn't understand was they had decided, because they had a number of shortstops, they didn't have enough pitching, that I was going to be a pitcher on that team. But when I got to camp, the chipped bone was preventing me from swinging a bat. I couldn't swing a bat. It was too painful. But I could throw. Like, this was not a problem to throw. And I thought, okay, I can't swing a bat, but I can throw, so I can pitch. So I got on the roster as a pitcher, but I didn't do well. I did not. Well, I tell you what happened. I didn't want to pitch. You probably picked that up from me. I didn't want to pitch, and so our third game of the season, we had two catchers. One had come to camp with a pulled hamstring. He couldn't even play to begin with. And then in the second game of the season, our catcher got hurt, busted his ankle, slide in the second. And we didn't have a catcher. So I said to the coach, because I had been catching all spring. I love catching. So I said, Coach, I've been catching all spring. Let me fill in. You know, I thought maybe this was my ticket, right? So he said to me, all right, we're gonna, here's what we'll do. We'll let you catch batting practice tonight, and then we'll see how you do. Take some throws down the second, and then we'll see. Maybe we'll put you in. So I'm so excited because I'm gonna catch batting practice. But that night, batting practice got rained out. So there was no batting practice, but the game started. So we had the game, and the first baseman became the catcher. They put me down in the bullpen to catch the warm-ups with the bullpen. So I'm like, oh yeah, I really want to get in there and catch. But that night, all our pitchers got rocked, and then I was the last guy left as a pitcher, and so we went through all our pitchers. So they called me in to pitch, you know, in the latter part of the game. And again, it was kind of an adrenaline thing, and I was so pumped up. And I got in there, and I faced 4 batters, and I didn't throw one strike. I threw like, how many is that? 16 straight balls, and all of them were like shoot, shoot, shoot. And there was a guy on the other team that I knew from Chicago, and I said to him, hey, yeah, pitching wasn't so great, but I don't care because I think they're going to let me try out a catcher. He said to me, no way they're going to let you try out a catcher because your fastball was really humming tonight. I'm like, yeah, but that's not usual. Anyway, they said, no, you're not going to catch, you're going to pitch. And about halfway through the season, they let me go. And you know how it is. I mean, it's your dream, and you're disappointed, and it's really, really, really hard. And yeah, I got cut from the team, and I have to come back home. And so that was tough. That was really, really tough. But 2 days after I got home, I remember I was sitting on the stoop, my front porch, and I had this thought, and I thought, you know, it's disappointing. Looks like I lost the dream. But baseball is not the most important thing in my life. Jesus is by far the most important thing in my life. And he said he'd never leave me or forsake me. And I'm never going to lose him. I could lose my health. I could lose my career. There's so much. There's no guarantees in life, right? But he's a guarantee. Promised to never leave me or forsake you. So I got up and I'm like, okay, I'm good. Let's go on with life, right? And I did have a chance to go back to the baseball camp, and while he was going to sign me again, but then he ended up selling the team, so I never got it. But that was fun. That was fun. And I'll tell you this one last thing. When the Lord called me into the ministry, called me to go to graduate school. It was a very, very, very clear call. And my second year of graduate school, I did my internship in Vancouver, Washington, at a big church there. Great church, and one of the greatest preachers I've ever heard. I got to sit under him. He would preach 3 times a day, and I would go to every service just to hear him preach. It was so amazing. But there was a guy in the church, and he had season tickets to the Portland Beavers baseball team. The Portland Beavers was a AAA club, and that's one step below the majors. So the guys on the Portland Beavers, their next step is to the major leagues. So this guy had box seats, and we're going to the game. He knew I was a baseball player, and we're sitting there. And I looked at the shortstop for the Portland Beavers, and I'm like, I looked at his batting average, and I looked at his arm. He was a good fielder, but didn't have much of an arm. He had hardly any. He didn't hit very good batting average. And I looked at him and I said, "Shoot, man, I'm better than him." And the Holy Spirit spoke to me. He just spoke to me so clear. And he said to me, "So, would you trade places with him right now?" Good question, eh? And I thought about it and I said, "Nope. Nope. I know I am where I'm supposed to be." And I'm just so grateful. I'm so grateful. I love the church. I love Edmonton. I love Alberta. I love you guys. It's been a real rewarding pleasure. And I'm just so happy to be on this journey. And whatever it holds, I know that He's faithful. Amen. So thanks, you guys. Appreciate it. And I guess we can go back to the game. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah.